So today we're going to have a panel discussion about the Uglii marketplace system, a very exciting Uglii marketplace system. We've got John Knorr, CEO and founder of Uglii, Robert May, who's a director. We've got Don Tiley, who's basically about translations, and Andrew Bolsh. So we'll start off with talking about, we've had a description of the processes of the system, but we haven't had a description of the benefits. John, do you want to give us an overview of the benefits?
I think we really need to look at some of the processes first, because not everybody will have seen the previous thing. But basically, the Uglii spatial marketplace system allows a business to define a catchment into which it wants to market into. And that catchment can be as local or as far away as it wants. It can be as big or as small as it wants. It's totally up to the business and the business needs, marketing needs, and where it can supply its products and services into. So that gives all businesses on the planet the flexibility of defining very precisely where they want to market to and leaving the rest of the planet alone. So the system becomes very economical because it's very, very precise. And the other processes of the Uglii system are also very precise. The ability to define products and services very accurately in the Uglii system means that I can market my products and services with great precision geographically and by the definition of that product or service. It also allows for qualifications of those offers. In other words, I may be able to facilitate doing business by various credit card systems or payment processes, and I might be able to do that, qualify that by other things such as letters of credit through banks and so on. So that means that when a request for an offer for a product or service comes up in the catchment that I've defined for my business, the system will make an offer on behalf of my business to that business requiring that offer. It's as simple as that.
Robert, how does this facilitate a small business versus a large business? What difference does the system have for large or small businesses? I know Uglii go by every business, every country, so is there favouritism for big business or?
No, there's no favouritism at all. We've got functions in there that big business can use, and but the system is identical for small businesses or large business. In terms of governments using the system, they can insist that any potential suppliers must register in the system. They can also use the facility that will publish their requests, so that a supplier can see the history of requests and the current requests. For a small business, they might want to make requests, but the system keeps them anonymous so that they can feel free, test the market. They're not going to be bombarded with people knowing who's requested this. They're anonymous. All the suppliers know about them is that they fall within their catchment. The rest of it stays anonymous. So that's a very very important thing for small businesses to be able to know they can use the system without being exposed onto a marketing list somewhere.
Look, I think the important point is that the system treats a business or a place of business the same, regardless of whether it's owned by a big business or a small business. Okay, so that's the distinguishing feature of the system. If I've got a branch of my big business, then it behaves like a small business in a local catchment, in a local area. So it's very much the same facility. One of the things that we don't quite understand about the system is what effect it will have on marketing generally. We were talking before about a qualified lead for $1 or 60 cents or 40 cents or whatever the price may be. That's a bargain, okay, and that's never happened in history before that you could get that sort of marketing bargain. So we think that businesses generally will be able to reduce their expenditure on marketing, but also we expect a lot of small businesses that don't have a budget to market, to compete, will come into the marketplace to compete because now they can. They've got a tool that they can afford. I think of all of the businesses that I've owned over the years, and I can't think of any time in my life as a business owner that I've really felt that I've had enough money to do the marketing that I wanted to do. But the Uglii system caters for that. It gives me the ability to market and to compete on my merits of my business, and I think that's what's so powerful about the system. So I think we'll see some structural changes in all economies about how the system is going to affect marketing. But the big change, I think, is going to be that businesses in all economies who have never bothered to export or tried to export will have the ability to try and compete to export in other economies. It's only going to cost them $1. I always use the example of a presentation we did in Brussels recently, or a year or so ago, where an economist from Zambia basically said to us, look, we grow the most fantastic mangoes in Zambia. They rot on the ground because we don't have the resources to market them. But with the Uglii system, we can spend $1. So when somebody requests a container load of mangoes in Chicago or New York, we can compete to supply our excellent mangoes into those markets. So from a business point of view and a marketing point of view, that's transformed our ability to compete to market our produce into the economy. So from a business point of view that's never dreamt of marketing outside its boundaries, this thing is profoundly important. It's profoundly powerful. It's an enormous opportunity, and I think governments are going to have to adjust to those changes. We're going to be in a much more competitive and enthusiastic world for marketing with this system. It's profoundly different to anything. The cost is $1 in the developed economies, and then that steps down to 60 cents in lesser economies, and in developing economies it's at 40 cents. So we can be quite precise about the cost. That's the cost. That's what the billing system charges. And of course Robert's right. They're getting qualified leads for 60 cents or $1. I mean, it's a very, very powerful marketing system. So
Cheaper than a phone call if you're doing cold
absolutely,
calling.
yeah, absolutely, and it's qualified lead. So it's it's businesses wanting to buy the product or service that I sell. So it's a hot or warm lead. So
Sure.
Very valuable.
Sure.
Very powerful system. So.
Sure. Don, obviously this is powerful for governments. Can you give us a little bit of an overview on how this can aid in procurement?
Look, I've worked in a local government, for example, and there's usually a range of purchases which are done either at the higher level via tender, which is a very complex process. But there's also a significant amount of smaller things that are done, like ranging even from the purchase of stationery, fuels, the ongoing operational things that we use in local government. So instead of actually having to go out and get either establish a long-term tender for a supplier or to go and get the 3 quotes if they're an ad hoc one, you can basically just start up in the morning and pop your request onto Uglii there, and anyone anywhere in the world can respond to that. More likely for fuel providers, they're going to be in the local catchment. But you're immediately getting the benefit of knowing that that's the best offer you can get on the day directly from anyone who's prepared to pay for it.
Sure.
Supply.
There's the corruption side of that, John. That's your baby.
Well, I think there's 3 areas. One is that procurement processes of governments are notoriously inefficient, and the overheads of managing current procurement process are simply an overhead that is expensive for the taxpayers. The Uglii system eliminates a lot of that. The other problem with procurement processes that the world's got at the moment is that they're not very competitive. Now, the Uglii system is competitive because it allows every willing supplier to probably automatically submit a price for the supply of that product or service in the geography or the location that government or local government wants that supply to be. So the system will automatically bring more suppliers into competition. So we can expect that the cost of supplying will come down for governments. And that's really important because it's our taxes at work, and we as taxpayers want to see that we're getting value for money. And frankly, there's no country we deal with 60 or 70 countries at the moment, and no government that we're dealing with sees that they're happy with the processes that they've got at the moment. They admit it. They say, look, our processes are inefficient, they're uncompetitive, but that's the system that we've got. And then there is, of course, the big problem of corruption, and it's a big problem. And we talk about corruption as an increasing problem because it's a perception of inefficiency on behalf of the government. If I'm going to invest in a country, I want to invest in a country where the government is not corrupt, because it's going to cost me more and more and more to invest in that country, to build the plant or whatever I want to do in that country. So capital is becoming increasingly smart about where it goes. It doesn't want to go into corrupt countries or corrupt states. There's a classic example at the moment in India, where Gujarat state has established itself with a reputation for being an uncorrupt state of India, and projects are relocating from the corrupt states of India into Gujarat because they know they're not going to get mucked around by corruption and corrupt processes. They want to do business in an uncorrupt environment. Because we store in the system every procurement event indefinitely, if you're corrupt in procurement in our system, then you're likely to get caught, because somebody in 5 years' time is going to come back and say, look, this bloke's a bit suspect. Let's go back through his record and have a look at his procurement, procurement
So
events.
it's all transparent.
It's all transparent. You're going to get caught sooner or later, so don't do it. Only a fool would use our system and be corrupt in those processes. We're in Europe at the moment. We've got massive problems with government spending being way, way, way too high, and the inability of governments to pay their bills is a real problem. If they can tidy up their procurement processes, it's going to make it easier for them to pay their bills, pay off their debts, and do the things that they should be doing as government. So what we're doing is providing them with effectively a free service to get their act together. So as far as I can see, there is no excuses, and I think downstream from here, people will be start to say to governments, look, you've got the option of using the Uglii system to tidy up your act. Why aren't you using the Uglii system?
Okay. And how do you see the Uglii marketplace system solving that problem in particular?
Because we, as Uglii, encourage the businesses that are involved in Uglii to update their information. They are prompted to update their information every 6 months or so. And it is everybody's responsibility, if they want to stay efficient and receive the business that can be generated within the system, for businesses to keep their information up to date.
Sure.
And so...
Yeah, and who wouldn't want to do that if you're in business for yourself? Yeah, sure. Okay. What are some of the other benefits, Robert?
Could I just make one?
Yeah, sure,
when we're
sorry.
talking about other benefits, the thing that really, I've been involved in business for the last 40 years, and I've involved in a number of startups during the course of that time. Now, typically, businesses will fail within the first 2 years of being started up, okay? And what happens is you start up your business. You might have a manufacturing business, as I did at one stage. You've got to work out where your marketplace is, and then you've got to work out a way to market within that marketplace. There's a cost involved. Because you're a startup, you don't know exactly where to spend your dollars, what to spend your dollars on, and the rest of that. This system enables a startup on day one to register the products that they're producing and to get them out there in the marketplace and to receive offers from them from day one, which is a huge advantage for startups. I mean, the cost to economies of businesses falling over in the first 2 years of operation is huge, and this is going to cut back that dramatically.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, look, that's so important. That's so important. There's no history of any process being so benign for business starting up. From day one, every business that starts up can compete with the other suppliers in the marketplace. Now, that almost sounds unfair, it's so powerful, but yeah, it is profoundly important. And if we're going to get our economies to grow, then we've got to facilitate new business coming into the economy, and if we're going to get unemployment down and all of the things that politicians have problems with and economies have problems with, it's only going to be because new business come into the economy and create new opportunities and compete in the marketplace, whether the marketplace is their economy or some other economy around the world. So the point that Andrew makes is really profoundly important.
Right.
I could only dream in my business life of having a situation like this where I could compete from day one of operating a business. This is a fantastic thing for every business, and we need to change the culture in all business, in all economies, don't we? Robert and I are serial business owners, so we know exactly what we're talking about here. It's hard starting businesses. You're taking risk with your money and your house and all your savings and all of these things, and so many people fail that so many people don't do it because of the high risks. Well, with this system, we're making it a hell of a lot easier for business to have a go and give them a better chance. And I think Andrew's point's absolutely spot on.
Right.
It's profoundly important that we ever seen. So, yeah.
Sure. So there's 200 million businesses in the world. How long do we think it will take to have most of those businesses registered in Uglii?
Well, there are various estimates, Joe, but the indications are that the registrations will flow very rapidly. We're very conscious that a lot of governments are getting right behind these processes. It's a sad thing that the governments of the countries that are well run are very much supportive of us and are proactive, and sometimes they get a bit ahead of us, don't they? About the system, because they understand the economic advantage to not only the internal operations of their economy, they understand the benefits for procurement, how it's going to make life better for governments to be efficient and do things more efficiently, and reduction in corruption. The sad part of the equation is that the countries that are in distress tend to be very hard to talk to. You just can't get their attention, and I suppose that'll change over time. But yeah, that's distressing. We just see that all over the world, that if a country's in distress, it's hard to talk to them. They're distracted. They're too busy to worry about new ideas. They're too busy wringing their hands to really take any notice of us. But we think that will change. And look, the estimates run from a year to perhaps 2 years to get those 200 million businesses in.
Okay. Don, can you talk us through how the system is going to get over language barriers? I think in India alone there's like 22 languages. How are they going to deal with each other, let alone in one country, but around the world when there's a language barrier? How will Uglii overcome that?
Joe, I think in my presentation earlier I kind of gave the core technology example of how someone puts in their offer in one language and then it can be effectively seen in another language. I think Robert then in the slides he showed before, we actually showed a few more of the screens.
Sure.
You could actually see someone would put in, say, in the example I used before was they would actually put their offer for shoe leather in Hungarian. You'd see one screen there would be operating in Hungarian, and then the potential buyers could be looking at their screens in Spanish or English or anything. So because the system, the user of it selects the language that they want to operate in. So I also kind of relate back to a question from one of our guests back there before about how the opportunity to put messages in different languages, and I said, well, you can have your website there, but I also noticed there is the marketing message field on there that potentially you can put in your marketing messages in multiple languages in there. So you already see documents that people are using around the world today, like in Canada, a lot of their documents are in English and French. There's nothing to stop a business making an offer here to put their language in that field, their message in that field in as many languages as they like.
Right.
To take advantage of potential users there.
That's
Okay.
right. I mean, they can also create offers for different countries too, because
Yes.
they create different catchments for
Sure.
them, so they can be one totally dedicated to Spanish or whatever.
Sure. And I know that we did touch on that earlier, but the reason I asked you, Don, was because some people that are viewing this online may not have seen some of the earlier presentations, so thank you for that. Is there anything we haven't covered in regard to the marketplace system?
Joe, I'd just like to give a practical example about how the spatial marketplace is going to be of assistance to
Great.
my small town where I come from. 2 years ago, I started up a running festival, and I sourced locally some medallions to give to the runners at the end of the race. And those medallions cost me in the order of, well, in excess of $10 each, okay?
Sure.
I did some research, and it was extremely hard to do. You know, you go on to do a Google search, and you don't know who's bogus and who's not. You don't know who's a good supplier, who's not, etc. And I was travelling through Hong Kong, and I was extremely lucky, and I came across a very reliable supplier, okay?
Right.
And I landed medallions for all my runners for this year's festival at 95 cents US, okay?
Right.
Now, that was a quote from one supplier. Now, under the Uglii marketplace system, I could say, right, and I've just given a quote on the Sydney Marathon for 15,000 runners, 15,000 medallions, but I could put out there in the marketplace that I wanted X number of medallions, that I wanted to pay for them by American Express, that I wanted them to be delivered by such and such a time, and any other provisos that I might have. And I could receive quotes from any country, including Slovenia, in the world where a manufacturer might want to supply me. And so it may be that instead of getting them for 95 cents, that I could get them for even cheaper than that. And
Sure.
The random nature of getting quotes, the random nature of sourcing is taken out of it altogether.
Sure. And also, of course, we know that it's a qualified business.
It's a qualified business. You know, in Hong Kong, for instance, they are qualified. You have qualifications that are given to them by the government as being appropriate for export. But really, you know, you look at, you do an internet search, and which of the companies are relevant and which of the companies are bogus. You've got no idea.
Sure.
Really.
Okay.
The big advantage of the system. The big advantage of the system is that it's effectively a closed system. Only businesses that are registered and have gone through the proper registration processes have got in the system get into the system. To get into the system, they must be a legitimate business in their economy and be recognised by the government as a legitimate business in the economy. So the system is a high veracity system. In other words, I can trust the offers that are made to me, or I've got means of following that up if those offers are unsatisfactory or bogus. In other words, anybody that does business in the Uglii spatial marketplace system would have to be stupid to do anything fraudulent. Okay? And one of the big problems that we get with talking to every government that we talk about, of course, is that the inefficiency of the internet is a problem because of so much fraudulent and bogus information that's in the system. Our system doesn't have that problem because it's a closed system. So it means that if I'm getting an offer for something from anywhere in the world, I can be confident that it's a legitimate offer and that I can trust it.
Sure.
The other thing that's about the Uglii system in general is that a lot of governments that are appreciative of the system understand that the system's going to bring fringe businesses that are not really in the proper economy into the mainstream economy, and that's going to help those businesses because the Uglii system is very, very powerful. Therefore, if they're going to get the benefits of the Uglii system, they've got to come into the system and be registered, and they're only going to get registered with Uglii if they are registered with the government. So,
Sure.
So we think that will help bring a lot of these fringe businesses in, and a lot of small businesses like small farmers, that are really not treated like businesses in their economies at the moment, but will get profound benefits in terms of their ability to buy better and sell better and do the business
Sure.
things that they want.
Okay.
So we think the population of businesses in the world is going to grow very rapidly
Right.
with the system.